The future of abortion pills in America could be hanging in the balance. A Texas judge will hold a hearing today about whether to ban sales of mifepristone, even in states where the drug remains legal. When used with a second pill, it's considered the most common method of abortion in the U.S. However, anti-abortion rights groups sued the FDA in November over its approval of the medication. So joining us now to talk more about this is Leah Litman. She's a law professor at the University of Michigan and co-host of the Strict Scrutiny podcast. There you go. So let's talk about this. How might this impact abortion access, not just in Texas, but across the U.S., including states that have already made moves to protect abortion rights?
This case could have profound implications for access to abortion throughout the entire United States. Medication abortion is the most common method of abortion in the country. Over 50% of abortions are performed through medication abortion. And this lawsuit effectively asks a court to prohibit doctors and the federal government from permitting, people to access one of the drugs in the medication abortion protocol. That would compound the serious access gaps and reproductive deserts that we are seeing in the wake of the Supreme Court overruling Dobbs. States that are having to cater to many more patients who need access to abortion because their own states have prohibited it are now going to be in even more difficult situations as more people need to access surgical abortions and as people possibly shift to another drug protocol that is less effective for medication abortion.
Have abortion pills become the primary target of anti-abortion rights groups in a post-Roe v. Wade world?
Yes, and that's true for several reasons. One is that medication abortion is just the most common method of abortion in the United States, and overruling Roe versus Wade and the constitutional protection for abortion was never the end goal of the legal anti-choice movement. It was always a nationwide abortion ban, and removing the most common method of abortion in the United States is one step toward getting us closer to a nationwide abortion ban. And then the second reason is medication abortion is, in the current age of the internet and more, cross-border services, a way for people to access abortion even in states that prohibit it because they can easily travel to another state or get abortion pills shipped to them. And so again, targeting medication abortion is a way of really cracking down and enforcing these draconian abortion restrictions that have popped up and are being enforced in so many states in the wake of the Supreme Court overruling Roe.
I'm wondering if it's particularly significant that this hearing is happening in Texas, because Texas, implemented a unique sort of series of laws restricting abortion that allows private citizens from anywhere in the country to sue anyone who helps someone get an abortion, which conceivably could be if this, I guess, pill is outlawed, then, and somebody decides to get it by mail, the letter carrier, I don't know how many people could be sued. Is it significant that this hearing is happening in Texas with the particular laws that Texas has?
I think it's significant that the hearing is happening in Texas because of the federal judges that are in Texas and the federal judges that will be hearing this case in Texas. In particular, by filing this lawsuit in Texas and by filing this lawsuit in the place where they did, the anti-abortion groups knew that they had extremely high odds and were basically guaranteed of drawing a favorable judge. Before he became a judge, Judge Kacsmaryk participated in anti-abortion legal cases. Since he became a judge, he has limited access to Title 10 family planning and contraceptive methods. He has issued a host of other rulings that made them think, look, if anybody is going to be willing to prohibit medication abortion nationwide, it's going to be this guy. And so I think that's why it's significant the lawsuit is in Texas.
And we should note this judge, there was some concern over a lack of transparency because he didn't want to announce this hearing until the very last minute, which drew some criticism. Leah, what are the implications on the FDA if the judge rules against them in this case?
It will be an unprecedented legal move for a court to basically second guess the Food and Drug Administration's expert determination that a drug is safe. It's important for people to understand that the FDA approved this drug more than 20 years ago. And in the 23 years since medication abortion and mifepristone has been available, all of the available evidence suggests it's more safe than penicillin, it's safer than Viagra. And if a federal court claims the authority to second guess the FDA's determination and try to eliminate this drug from the market, there's no stopping point at what other drugs, federal judges might say, actually, we just disagree with the FDA's determination. And I think that's a very scary world that we might be living in shortly.
Leah Litman, thank you.
Thank you.